I can't impress upon you enough. Even if it's not on this call and we don't get interactive, we're not just going to blow past this for next week. I mean, some homework is going to really be to bring back, you know, 3 to 5 examples of how transactional relationships are showing up in your agency so that we can solve for them. So, I'd like to ask one more time now because
I got one.
The girl. Thank you, Allison.
So I find that with my sales girl, the one that we get that goes straight transactional is when we buy leads.
Okay.
So we get the lead in and it's immediately a transactional thing because of the type of lead it is. For some reason, she struggles in making that not a transactional thing.
Okay, awesome. And so tell me a bit about, is that just something in her head? Because if tell me about the specific list. Is it somebody that's raised their hand because they're interested in insurance or what?
Yeah.
What's the makeup?
So
okay,
we
cool.
purchase leads from a lead vendor. They come into us as an email with what they currently have as far as, like, when it's an auto lead, it's what they currently have as far as bodily injury and property damage and their vehicle.
Okay.
And then it gives like date of birth. So I think it's the mindset of, because I've got half of the information, I need to do an apples to apples quote.
Yes. Yes. Okay, cool. This is a good one. And I want to break it down. And I'm so glad that, you brought it up. So let me do the next 2 slides. We'll talk about how we can help your rep, and then I'll do some role play or talk through it. So that's awesome, because now we've got something real we can play with. So what Allison is talking about here is the scenario where we've got a preoccupation, and what's happening is, let me just make sure this is still sharing. Why isn't this? Okay, cool. Is that Allison? What's her name? Or maybe we would just call it Allison's. Rep is faced with the struggle because it's a list lead where we have half the information already. Somebody's par baked, if you will. They've raised their hand and said, "I am interested in probably getting a quote for insurance." That this particular rep has in her head that because she's gone that far down the track, this likely needs to be a quick transactional call that's going to be based on the numbers. So the first thing we need to do in helping Allison help her rep understand this is to first recognize that that's a preoccupation. That's something, a story, if you will, that she's created in her head about these leads that are preoccupying her and preempting her from focusing on what really actually matters most. All right, we'll get to what matters most in a second. But in her head, in most heads, it's like, I need to close this, right? I need to hit my numbers. I need to make bonus. I need to pay rent, right? And so in her head, it's that plus, well, this is somebody's calling in for a very specific reason, wants a number and only a number. But is the number what ultimately serves them the most? Is what they think serves them the most ultimately what serves them the most, Allison? I see you shaking your head. No. And that's all right. Enjoy some snack while I'm enjoying some coffee with us as well. Exactly. So the preoccupation we have now is that we need to focus on what they think is most important, when in reality, our job as a trusted advisor is to focus on what we need, what we know, because we're the experts, to be most important to them is the coverage and protection of their family. So we need to create and maintain a clear focus on the client's needs, no matter the list. So if these leads are coming in from a list, it doesn't change the client's needs. The client's need is always to be cared for, is always to be is always to be working with a trusted advisor who has their individual and family's needs in the highest regards. That never changes. How the leads come in, from what place they come in, if they're a bot list, if they're a cold call, if it's an inbound call, all of those things will change. But our ability to create and maintain a clear focus on the client's needs is the only thing that matters. So we'll show you how to do this, probably not today, but to create a state of presence before you engage with the client. So we have to become aware that when we get into these modes, these transactional modes, it's a conditioning. In order to break that conditioning, we need to do some new conditioning in place of it. But we also need to know that when we do that conditioning, we'll get comfortable, and then eventually we stop doing the conditioning, and we need to recognize those patterns so that we're always doing the conditioning. So we need to create, or she needs to create, a state of presence before she engages with the clients. She needs to still enter the interaction with interest, openness, and curiosity about the other person. Remember, some of you have been with us for a few weeks, a couple months now. We're always talking about, I'm curious. Would you be interested? And I'm curious, open, interested, right? Curious about the other person. And then ultimately we need to stop, drop, and connect. So we need to stop that preoccupation, drop where our focus is, focus on the client's needs, and connect. So if I had this particular rep in front of me, I would ask her, help me understand why you believe this list is a transaction. And Allison has done a pretty good job of explaining that, because we have half the information. We know what we need to know to be able to make a quote. They're probably looking for a number. So in terms of entering the interaction with interest, openness, and curiosity about the other person, here's how I'd go about it. We could role play a little bit, Allison. I would, and you could come off mute. So I would say something like, when you tell me, actually, just really quick, when they make the call outbound, what is she saying?
So we actually had coaching about this morning, because I
okay, cool.
one of her calls, and that's what brought it to my mind. But so she got a quote in, so she called him and said, am I speaking to so-and-so? Great, I got your request for the auto insurance. Is now a good time? Yep, it is. And then she jumped right into the quote.